Welcome to my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos. After losing her father, Jessica, a 4-year-old black girl, was heartlessly abandoned by her stepmother on a cold, rainy night. On a deserted street, battered by rain and cold winds, the little girl didn't know where to go. Poor Jessica huddled under the eaves of an old house, her big black eyes looking up into the rain, shivering and feeling utterly alone. Officer David, a white police officer, was patrolling the street when he happened to see Jessica sitting alone in the cold night. He had witnessed many tragic situations, but seeing a little girl like Jessica abandoned awakened a deep compassion within him. He approached the girl, using the warmest voice he could muster to ask, "Little one, are you lost?" Jessica looked at him, her black eyes wet with confusion. But she could only shake her head. The first words that escaped her mouth were, "Daddy. Daddy is dead." The officer looked at her, clearly sensing the cruelty and indifference that this little girl had endured. He knelt down, held her close, feeling the emptiness within her, and decided that he had to protect her at all costs. David worked tirelessly to find out more about Jessica's situation. He discovered that she had been abandoned by her stepmother after her father passed away. The thought of an adult harming an innocent child filled David with rage. He decided to adopt Jessica, giving her a loving and safe home that she deserved. The trial of Jessica's stepmother took place on a fall morning. In the solemn atmosphere of the courtroom, the large room was bathed in soft light from the tall windows. The judge's voice rang out clearly, each word heavy like a hammer striking the hearts of those listening. David sat in the back row, next to Jessica, who was clinging tightly to him, her big black eyes staring straight ahead, still bewildered by what was happening. The stepmother, Clara, stood before the court with a cold expression. She wore a dark dress, her eyes showing no emotion. Her lawyer began to offer excuses, saying that Clara was financially unable to care for Jessica after her husband's death, that she had been overwhelmed and panicked. But David knew, and everyone in the courtroom could also sense, that this was not just about money. It was the cold-heartedness and indifference of a woman who had decided to abandon a helpless child. The prosecutor presented a clear account of Jessica's situation on the night she was abandoned. They showed surveillance footage of Clara taking Jessica to a deserted street corner and walking away without looking back even once. The clear evidence brought a heavy silence over the courtroom. A few sighs escaped from the spectators, and Jessica held on to David's arm even tighter. He could feel her trembling, and he gently comforted her. The judge, an elderly man with a stern face, looked directly at Clara. He asked her, "Do you realize what your actions have done to a 4-year-old child? Are you aware of the pain and fear that Jessica went through, being abandoned on a cold, rainy night?" Clara remained silent, her head bowed. A few tears rolled down her cheeks. But no one in the courtroom felt sympathy. Those tears could not erase the trauma that Jessica had endured. The prosecutor continued, emphasizing that Clara's actions not only violated the law but also betrayed the trust of an innocent child. They demanded that the court impose an appropriate sentence to ensure that such actions would never happen again. After hearing all the arguments and evidence, the judge declared Clara guilty of child abandonment and sentenced her to 2 years of community service, along with mandatory participation in child care and protection classes. He also emphasized that Clara's financial difficulties could not justify her actions of abandoning and harming a child. She had to take responsibility for what she had done and understand the consequences of her heartless behavior. When the sentence was announced, Clara said nothing. She simply lowered her head and quietly left the courtroom under police supervision. David watched her leave, feeling a sense of relief. He knew that justice had been served, and Clara had to pay for what she had done to Jessica. But most importantly, Jessica would never have to face that woman again. She would now live in a safe environment, surrounded by love and care. Jessica looked at David with tear-filled eyes, and David gently hugged her. He whispered, "I will always be here to protect you, no one will ever hurt you again." Those words were like a promise, not only to Jessica but also to himself. He knew that from this moment on, he had truly become Jessica's father. Not just legally, but also in both of their hearts. After the trial, Jessica's life gradually became more stable. She was no longer haunted by the image of her stepmother. David tried to create new memories for her, warm and happy ones, to replace the pain she had experienced. He took Jessica to parks, to the movies, and enrolled her in extracurricular activities so she could find joy and peace. David also took the time to explain the trial to Jessica. He wanted her to understand that everything was over and that no one could hurt her anymore. He talked to her about justice, about how everyone must be accountable for their actions, and that she deserved to be loved and protected. Jessica listened, her big black eyes focused on David, as if trying to understand everything he was saying. Finally, she smiled, snuggled into his arms, and whispered, "I understand, Daddy. I won't be afraid anymore." Those words made David feel deeply moved. He knew that their journey was still long, with many challenges ahead. But he believed that as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The trial had closed a painful chapter in Jessica's life and opened a new one, a chapter full of hope and love, where she would always be protected and cared for by the father she trusted the most. Life for Jessica and David after the trial continued with many positive changes. David was determined to spend more time caring for and loving Jessica. He understood that emotional wounds take a long time to heal, and the best way to help her was to create new, happy memories to replace the painful ones. Every morning, David and Jessica started their day by preparing breakfast together. David taught Jessica how to make simple dishes like toast and fried eggs, and Jessica enjoyed being able to make food herself. These small moments helped Jessica feel like an important part of the family and also boosted her confidence. After breakfast, David took Jessica to school. On the way, they often had cheerful conversations. Sometimes David would tell her about his work, and other times he would simply ask about her wishes for the day. Jessica gradually became more outgoing and open, starting to share with David about her new friends at school, her favorite games, and funny stories from class. David always tried to be present at Jessica's important events at school, from her performances to parent-teacher meetings. He wanted Jessica to know that he was always there for her, that she was never alone. His presence helped Jessica feel more secure and confident. She was no longer afraid to stand in front of a crowd and even joined extracurricular activities like drawing and playing musical instruments. Every weekend, David and Jessica spent time on small adventures. They would often take walks in the park, camp in a nearby forest, or explore new places. David knew that exploring the outside world would help Jessica broaden her horizons and feel stronger. Once, David decided to take Jessica to visit a small farm in the countryside. This was Jessica's first time interacting with animals like sheep, goats, and horses. She was thrilled to pet the lambs and even boldly fed them. David watched Jessica laugh and play with the animals, sensing the pure joy of a childhood that she deserved. He felt happy seeing Jessica grow stronger and more optimistic. In the evenings at home, David and Jessica often cooked together. David taught her how to prepare simple dishes. And sometimes they experimented with new recipes. Jessica loved cooking and often said that when she grew up, she wanted to be a great chef to cook delicious meals for her dad. Dinner was not just a time to eat, but also an opportunity for the two of them to share, talk, and understand each other better. David knew that building trust and a sense of security for Jessica was a long process. He always tried to listen to and understand her feelings. There were nights when Jessica still had nightmares, waking up crying. David never showed frustration or tiredness, he was always there to comfort her, holding her and assuring her that everything was over, that she would always have him by her side. David also didn't forget the importance of education and skill development for Jessica. He enrolled her in art and music classes so she could develop her talents and find her own joys. Jessica loved her drawing class and would often bring her drawings home to show David. He always praised and valued her works, even if they were just the naive sketches of a child. That Christmas, David prepared a special surprise for Jessica. He bought a big Christmas tree, and together they decorated it. This was Jessica's first real Christmas. With a tree, twinkling lights, and presents. She was excited as she unwrapped each gift. And when she saw the doll she had always dreamed of, Jessica hugged David tightly and whispered, "I love you so much, Daddy." David felt his heart melt. He knew that his love and care had helped Jessica feel safe and loved. He also realized that not only had Jessica changed, but he had changed as well. From a man living for work and stressful duties, David had become a father, with unconditional love for his little daughter. During Thanksgiving and other special occasions, David always tried to create beautiful memories for Jessica. He took her to visit museums, attend concerts, and even enjoy outdoor picnics. Each experience was part of building and strengthening their relationship. Jessica not only felt loved but also felt that she truly belonged to a family. Life for Jessica and David was not always smooth, but it was filled with love and care. The challenges and hardships they faced only made their bond stronger. Jessica was no longer the abandoned child on a rainy street but had become a lively and hopeful little girl. And David, from a busy police officer, had become a true father, finding the greatest happiness in loving and protecting his little girl. David also learned a lot from Jessica. She taught him about unconditional love, patience, and cherishing the small moments in life. Their journey was not just that of a father and an adopted daughter, but also the journey of two people healing together and building a better future.